Let's look at each of these in turn. Inspiration. Inspiration would be what Max Weber calls charismatic leadership. Charismatic leader inspires love, adoration, and fellowship in his followers through some set of excellent qualities in himself, such as, but not limited to, good character, bravery, selflessness, and vision. He exudes those qualities that draw people to him, and without even engaging in discourse to get people to want to believe what he says, but by his presence alone. Reason. Reason is the art of using deductive and inductive methods of thinking in order to change the belief of your interlocutor without recourse to force or pressure. By using reason, one is trying to find some common ground with your interlocutor and shift his position to yours by showing that those beliefs and facts you share in common are sufficient to show that in those areas where you disagree, your interlocutor should adjust his thinking to yours. Mental force. Mental force is the application of mental energy to a direct attack on the other person's mind. This is what is called psychological warfare operations. The goal here is not to reason with the enemy, but to find those weak points in the enemy's mind and hit them again and again and again until his mind is shattered, leaving no grounds for resistance. It is a truism that most people do not have a totally consistent worldview or set of beliefs. The use of mental force consists in pinpointing these contradictions and relentlessly striking the enemy there to break his concentration, his mind, and his ability to fight back. For example, if your opponent is a liberal and thinks he is a good and moral person, unlike all those bigots out there, you can analyze his criticism of said bigots. You can then analyze the grammar of his presentation of the opinions of bigots symbolically. The symbolic structure of these opinions are the key thing here. By tuning out the content of the structure, be it opinions on race, sex, or gender, you have a weapon to hit your liberal friend with. If you can find in his own thoughts and actions the same grammar, but with different content, say oikophobia, you can call him out as being just like those bigots. He will deny it, of course, but he will be deeply unsettled to know you have struck a chord. Keep hitting that chord until it snaps. For best results, do this from a position of moral high ground, as this leaves you defended from any counterattacks. Economic force. Economic force is the application of economic pressure to get people to do what you want. The most obvious and best example of this form of power is the use of threatening of firing someone for wrongthink in a corporation. Step 1, zero in on a target and understand his strengths and weaknesses. You want a man who can do the job well, but also a man who can be controlled. Once the psychological profile is created, you give him the promotion and raise. You then tell him with his new level of means he can indulge in more consumption. The type of consumption may vary as it has to be tailored to the man's tastes. Step 2, get the man to continue consuming, getting more and more into debt, more and more accustomed to living at this level of income. Then get his wife to nag him for more of the stuff she likes. He will cave. He wants some action. He doesn't want to sleep on the couch. If possible, even get the kids on board, vacations, etc. Step 3, when everybody is comfortable with this new way of life and the current levels of consumption hit him hard. Oh, you see, corporate has rolled out another PCBS talking point. Program or initiative. You'd better go along. You don't want to lose your job, do you? What would your wife say or do? This hits hard, and the harder you hit this man, the easier he will go down. A mouse in a baited trap. Physical force. The use of physical force is the most obvious and most written about, ranging from mafia, wet work, or global war. Physical force or threat of physical force is enough to get most people to comply. The use of force, ranging from non-lethal to lethal, in an individual or group setting, is threatened or used to get the other person or side to submit. To restate Clausewitz's formula in more general terms, we can say that will is the use of some efficient cause to alter the other's mind in just such a way that this aligns with you, short of the direct application of force. In the final analysis, will is one's mind against another mind, or one group of minds against another group of minds. This means that the stronger the mind and will, the stronger and more likely victory is to be achieved. As Xenophon states, the strongest soul wins. For you understand, I am sure, that it is neither numbers nor strength which wins victories in war, but which of the two sides it be whose troops, by the blessing of the gods, advance to the attack with stouter hearts. Against those troops, their adversaries generally refuse to stand. Couple this with Carlyle's insight, We figure society as a machine, and that mind is opposed to mind as body is to body, whereby 2 or at most 10 little minds must be stronger than one great mind. Notable absurdity, for the plain truth, very plain we think, is that minds are opposed to minds in quite a different way. And one man that has a higher wisdom, a heretofore unknown spiritual truth in him, is stronger not than 10 men that have it not, or than 10,000, but than all men that have it not, and stands among them with quite ethereal angelic power, as with a sword out of heaven's own armory, sky tempered, which no buckler and no tower of brass will finally withstand. And here we have 2 formulas. A great mind is greater than all other minds, and the strongest will wins. These 2 formula form the basis for the use of will as a form of power. A third formula rises from these 2. The use of mental energy is superior to physical energy per Carlyle's insight. The goal in war is the enemy's mind, not his body. While Clausewitz's definition of war includes the use of force for what? To bring the enemy's mind in line with your own. Guerrilla warfare adds the next level. Samuel Blair Griffith II states on guerrilla warfare, the mind of the enemy and the will of his leaders is a target of far more importance than the bodies of his troops. This is, in a sense, a great equalizer, as more people on average are able to exercise mental force than physical force. Furthermore, one can use the tools one already has, one's brain and mouth, rather than highly capitalized systems. Power, as it relates to the user, can relate in 2 ways, extrinsic and intrinsic. One might have a tool that one uses for some task. The tool itself is external to you and has power, hence the name power tools, for example. This is not something you possess, and by possess, I do not mean own as a piece of property, but some trait or attribute internal to you. While tools, men, and systems, corporations, states, armies, universities, and churches, external to you grant you power, it is not a power you possess. At any time, you could lose your connection to that power and be reduced to your true status. A good example of this is Timon from Shakespeare's Timon of Athens. He is a very rich and well-loved man. He makes the mistake of thinking that he is loved and respected for who he is, but when bad investments and profligate living hit him in his wallet, he is broke. He realizes he has no friends and goes mad, screeching imprecations against Athens. Don't be Timon. We shall discuss both in detail. Intrinsic power. Real power is the power that derives from inside you, the power that is part of your own being and substance. This power comes in 2 types, potential and actual. Man is a rational animal with a body and a mind. As a result of this fact, he has certain bodily powers and mental powers, both of which are native to his nature. These powers can further be divided into intrinsic and habituated. For example, power of locomotion via crawling as an infant and the power of mental imprinting by which a child learns to speak and act are both part of the natural workings of the human animal. These are powers that are already active at the proper time of maturation. Habituated powers are the active cultivation of powers. For example, gymnastics, swimming, and firefighting with regards to physical, or reasoning, writing of poetry, and writing of music in the mental. These powers lie dormant and potent in the human animal, but unlike instinctual expression, must be drawn forth through active cultivation, and usually, but not always, through direct education via a teacher. A man who is in possession of these cultivated powers is a true force to be reckoned with. Unlike, say, a power tool or a gun, the power he possesses cannot be taken from him. They form a part of his essential nature. Here is a 4th formula. That power which cannot be taken from you is the greater power. Extrinsic power. Extrinsic power comes in 2 forms, natural and synthetic. A natural power is some power that is inherent in nature and the fabric of reality, such that it exists without any human agency to produce, sustain, or direct it. This comes in 2 kinds, material and spiritual. A good example of natural power that is physical is the flow of water, be it tides, waves, or rivers. The man who can harness that power can power watermills and dams, hang 10, or direct a ship at sea. These powers exist independently of man's action, and a man who is intimately familiar with them has a competitive advantage over the man who is not. A good example of spiritual power is God himself. As the creator and sustainer of the universe, he is a limitless source of power to the man who aligns himself with him. To paraphrase Hebrews 11, such a man can bring down kingdoms, stand up to impossible odds, cheat death, and more. Both natural and spiritual external powers are processes that always work from their side of the equation. Let us use an example. In a contract, two men come together to abide by some prearranged terms for some economic benefit. Both parties not only have to worry about keeping to the letter of the contract, but also hedge against any possible breach of contract from the other person. This is a situation in which the relation can be terminated from either of the two components of that relation. In the terms of a sailor using current or a man covenanting with God, this is different. In both cases, only the man who engages in the relation can terminate it. The current will not stop offering its power to the prudent sailor, nor will God cease to provision the man who serves him. This is the strongest kind of relation to extrinsic power. This is power that is conditioned only on the successful application of reason and action to the object being related to. From this, we get the fifth formula. That power external to you that only depends on you to possess is second best. A second form of extrinsic power is one in which the power can be taken away from you either by having the object in use being removed from your possession or having the agent break faith with you. An example of the former involves the loss or theft of a firearm. You have thereby lost that power. An example of the latter involves a breach of contract or betrayal by a friend or colleague. You did your part, but not only did they fail to live up to their part, they harmed you. Most power today is of this kind, either financial or political or military. This means most men who are enmeshed in the system think they have power, but they do not. They are in fact only allowed the illusion of holding power. As soon as they fail to comply, they are out. For these men, less highly situated in the hierarchy, they have, quote, power, unquote, of a sort over them in order to compensate for being lorded over by those above them, a relation they assiduously hide from others. They lord it over those who are beneath them. This is, in fact, not the use of power at all. True power is the power not to use it. Here is the sixth formula. The power that depends on you and some other external relation to maintain is the weakest power of all. A classic example of the true use of power in its non-use is in Livy's account of the legate Gaius Pompilius Lianus. After receiving the submission of the inhabitants of Memphis and the rest of the Egyptian people, some submitting voluntarily, others under threats, Antiochus marched by easy stages towards Alexandria. After crossing the river at Eleusis, about 4 miles from Alexandria, he was met by the Roman commissioners, to whom he gave a friendly greeting and held out his hand to Popilius. Popilius, however, placed in his hand the tablets on which was written the decree of the Senate and told him first of all to read it. After reading it through, he said he would call his friends into council and consider what he ought to do. Pompilius, stern and imperious as ever, drew a circle around the king with the stick he was carrying and said, "Before you step out of that circle, give me a reply to lay before the Senate." For a few moments he hesitated, astounded at such a peremptory order, and at last replied, "I will do what the Senate thinks right." Not till then did Pompilius extend his hand to the king as to a friend and ally. Antiochus evacuated Egypt at the appointed date, and the commissioners exerted their authority to establish a lasting concord between the brothers, as they had yet hardly made peace with each other. This is power, to effect action by the mere threat of its use. Like a strong man who, through overexertion, destroys his muscles, strength, and endurance through continued action, power is depleted the same way. It must be cultivated and shepherded. Modern man does none of these things and fails for this reason. The most common mental substitute for power is money in the modern West, but money is just an agreed upon medium of exchange. While having money might give a man power over a man who has little to no money, the man with money is always in fear of losing it. He is always hedging against being double-crossed. He might hire lawyers to defend him. He might develop new schemes to make more money, but no matter what he does, when his line of income says jump, he meekly obeys and says how high. This is how political correctness arose and why so many people complied with COVID mandates. This is not power, it is slavery dressed up with gold investments. Furthermore, the powerful man does not need to do anything. People come to him rather than seeking people out. This is why the modern merchant man is weak. He is constantly chasing people down, trying to get them interested in what he has to hawk. This is energy expensive, and over time, the law of diminishing return argues he will get less and less for more and more effort. In the former case, the powerful man can remain patient and potent like the old ones. People come to him because he has what they do not. He does not need to advertise because his very presence exudes this reality. To quote Gary Cooper as Howard Rourke in the film Fountainhead, any man who calls for me is my kind of man. Rourke is a powerful man. He is a man of genius, who waits for men to become attracted to his genius. He doesn't chase others. That is a waste of time. He waits for others to come to him.